نعم.
اسمع لي أنا.
لا بأس. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين. ما بعد. So in continuing from where we left off in Surah Al-Baqarah, we reached ayah number 238. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى وقوموا لله قانتين فإن خفتم فرجالا أو ركبانا فإذا أمنتم فاذكروا الله كما علمكم ما لم تكونوا تعلمون. So within this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions preserve, hold firmly onto the salah, the prayers, especially Salat al-Wusta. اختلف أهل العلم ما معنى الصلاة الوسطى. There's difference of opinion among the scholars of the meaning of الصلاة الوسطى. Of the things that is mentioned is that it's al-asr. Also, of the things that is mentioned is that it is Salat al-subh, i.e. Salat al-fajr. That's of the things that have been mentioned. Now, of the things that have been mentioned by Ahl al-Ilm is those two. And some say it's about 10 differences of opinion regarding this. So, of the things that is mentioned, معنى حافظوا على الصلوات يعني وقوموا لله قانتين. Of the things that was mentioned before in the early days of the legislation of the salah, they were allowed to talk during the salah. They were allowed to talk within the salah, and then it became prohibited to talk within the salah. So that's of the things that was abrogated. The permissibility of talking. I mentioned قُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ أي ساكنين خاشعين. In state of tranquility and submission and the absolute devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now to be ultimately focused in the salah. And then talking in the salah will break and invalidate a person's salah. So of the things that is prohibited now from the mubtilat as-salah is al-kalam al-amd, intentionally speaking during the salah. When it means يعني حافظ على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى وقوموا لله قانتين, of the things that's also important when it comes to al-muhafadh على الصلاة and تقيم الصلاة بشروطها وأركانها وسننها وواجباتها. That a person is to establish the salah based upon fulfilling its conditions, and the conditions have to be in place before the salah starts until the salah has come to an end. And the arkan, the pillars of the salah, what the salah is built upon. And also the obligations, the obligatory actions of the salah. And the sunan, and a person beautifies, adorns their salah with the sunan of the salah. And also a person has to stay away from mubtilat as-salah, that which will nullify a person's salah. That which will nullify a person's salah. So that is the meaning of al-muhafadha ala salah, that a person is to uphold their prayer. Now, Ibn Kathir rahimahullah also mentioned that when it was mentioned حافظ على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى, it mentioned that in another narration the Prophet Muhammad said هي العصر. The Salat al-Wusta هي العصر. It is the Salat al-Asr. And that's also mentioned that Ibn Ja'far mentioned that the Prophet Muhammad was then being asked about the middle prayer. سئل عن صلاة الوسطى فقال هي العصر. That is also collected by Tirmidhi. I mentioned to be Hasan, Sahih, and other than them. Now, and also was also mentioned that Ibn Hibban, he collected in his Sahih, and Abdullah, and the Messenger of Allah said, Salat al-Wusta, Salat al-Asr. The middle prayer is Salat al-Asr. That's of the things that is mentioned. Also, of the things that is mentioned, the differences of opinion regarding scholars regarding what is Salat al-Wusta, there's about 10. However, أقوى الأقوال أنها الصبح أو العصر. Now, the strongest of the opinion that is either referring to Salat al-Asr or Salat al-Subh, ay Salat al-Fajr. And that is what is mentioned to be the strongest of the opinions. It mentions جاء في الحديث صحيح شغلونا عن صلاة الوسطى صلاة العصر. Now, that the disbelievers busied us from performing the middle prayer, and the Asr prayer. And they busied us, distracted us from praying the middle prayer, meaning Salat al-Asr. Allah then mentions, after commanding us to preserve the Salah, فإن خفتم فرجالا أو ركبانا فإذا أمنتم فاذكروا الله كما علمكم ما لم تكونوا تعلمون. Then Allah mentions, and if you fear an enemy, to perform the Salah on foot or riding. And when you're in safety, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pray in the manner He has taught you, which you knew not before. So what's mentioned here, يعني إذا في حال الخوف, in a time of fear, that Allah permitted for a person to pray either standing or on their riding beast, if they feared their enemy. But once they were safe, that they pray in the normal way that Allah has commanded us to pray. And you have different concessions. This is if a person's fear, they may be attacked by the enemy and the likes. Also, when it comes later, you understand the legislation of Salat al-Khawf, the Salah of Khawf, during times of battle and the likes. From this, we understand that the Muslim has been commanded to uphold the Salah regardless of the situation. It's not permitted for the Muslim to ever leave off the Salah. And when there are times of difficulty, you find Allah has legislated a number of concessions. You'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated and provided the Muslims with concessions. Examples, when a person is traveling and the likes, they're able to shorten and combine. When a person is ill, they can combine without shortening and the likes of this. So, of the thing that's important for a person to know, the importance of the Salah, that the Salah is never to be left off, ever. And also the different stages of a tashri', of legislation. At a time, it was permissible to talk during the Salah. I mentioned this was abrogated when Allah mentions وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. And when Allah mentioned this, it was then prohibited for people to talk during the Salah. Also of the things that's mentioned is الأمر بملازمة ذكر الله والشكر على نعمه بخاصة نعمة العلم بالإسلام. That a person is to constantly remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and show gratitude for the favors Allah has bestowed upon us, especially the favor of knowledge. Because when a person has knowledge, the things that may seem difficult for others become easy. Matters become easy with knowledge. After this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then goes back to talk about the topic of those who are widowed. Allah mentions وَالَّذِينَ يَتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنْكُمْ وَيَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا وَصِيَّةً لِأَزْوَاجِهِمْ مَتَاعًا إِلَى الْحَوْلِ غَيْرَ إِخْرَاجٍ فإن خرجنا فلا جناح عليكم فيما فعلنا في أنفسهن من معروف والله عزيز حكيم وللمطلقات متاع بالمعروف حقا على المتقين كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تعقلون. Allah mentions, and those of you who die and leave wives behind them, the wives shall wait in regards to their marriage for 4 months and 10 days, as we mentioned before. But in this situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, and if those of you who die and leave behind wives should bequeath for their wives a year's maintenance and residence without turning them out. Of the things that a person should write within their will, of the things that a person could write within their will is if they were to pass away, that their wife can stay within the household that he owns for a year, because after that period of time, what's going to happen? Things will be distributed in inheritance. So initially she has to stay in the house for 4 months and 10 days anyway, for the what? Iddah period. And that is the waiting period for the widow. And during that time, she's not permitted to go out without need, nor is she allowed to beautify herself, nor is she allowed to wear perfume and the likes, even within the home. She's not to do anything that would attract people to come and propose to her. Now, those are the ahkam that Allah has legislated for the one who her husband has passed away. But it mentions, when it says فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِيمَا فَعَلْنَا فِي أَنفُسِهِنَّ مِنْ مَعْرُوفٍ. As we mentioned previously when we discussed the similar ayah, it mentioned once that time has come to an end, the waiting period has come to an end, then she can do these things. She can go out without a need. She can go out, she can make herself known that she is available for marriage and the likes. But prior to this time, la. Prior to that time, that is not to be done. Okay? So, it's legislated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that she has to uphold the minimum of 4 months and 10 days of the iddah period. If she chooses to stay within the house after that, that's her choice. She has up until the end of the year, i.e. another 7 months and 20 days. However, if she chooses that she doesn't want to stay in the house, also there is no problem. Now, فَإِنْ خَرَجْنَا فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ. And if she chooses to leave after the iddah period has come to an end, then that is her choice. She's not blameworthy for that whatsoever. But if she wants to stay, then the family of the deceased husband should not become an obstacle in that. This also shows the importance of us to wake up and not live as if we're going to be granted life forever. Of the things that we should prepare ourselves is for this time in writing our wills, in living in a non-Muslim land, that is done according to Islam. That our will is exercised according to the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the thing is, from the maqasid of the Sharia, the things that the Sharia has preserved, the objective of the Sharia is preserving al-dam wal-'ird wal-mal, that a person's wealth and life and honor are from the things that are to be preserved. And even having the will preserves wealth, as everyone has rights within al-irth, inheritance. Also, it preserves life, because you'll find in some places bloodshed occurs between brothers and sisters that are from the same mother or father, or sometimes from the same father, different mother, just because they, for example, they think if you live in London and they live in another country, that you shouldn't be seeking your portion of inheritance because you're rich or you have more money than us. But they don't know the reality of the struggle that we're living in London, for example. They believe you should give up your share of inheritance. Wallahu musta'an. You'll hear many crazy stories of the extent people have gone to in harming their own siblings for the sake of inheritance. وَهَذَا ظُلْم. This is transgression. Now this is transgression. Allahu musta'an. You even find people in Jahiliyyah, they may have murdered siblings in order to gain inheritance. And that's something that was also known Bain al-Muluk, when you have kingdoms, when a child would kill a sibling in order to be the one who has the next right to the crown and the likes. As for Islam, these things are prohibited. And Islam preserves life, honor and wealth. So these are the rules that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enjoined upon us. Also, what's mentioned, Wallahu Azizun Hakim. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala huwa al-Aziz wal Hakim. فكل ما شرعه الله تعالى فهذا من عزته وحكمته وعلمه. Whatever Allah legislates, and this is from Allah's majesty, His perfect wisdom and perfect knowledge. Wallahu ta'ala alimun bimasalih li'ibadihi. Allah is the only one who knows what is in the best interest of His ibad. And that is in what is reflected in the legislation of Al-Islam. When the person truly ponders on the legislation of Islam, they will only find that which is in mankind's best interest. That which is in mankind's best interest. Except for Ahl al-Dalala wa Shahawat, except for the people of misguidance and desires. So also within the meaning of this, not only is it like a household that they have the right to stay in for the year, it also mentions that there should be a level of maintenance. Of the things that we have to look at today that people practice that is not correct. When someone dies, the first thing people do is open a GoFundMe page for the family. Sometimes, what if that GoFundMe page reaches 100k? Do you give the family 100k? If we started doing this, if you can see it, people will wait for their husbands to die. Some people will do this. Literally, they'll be happy. If I know, for example, subhanAllah, there's some brothers, they knew my husband, they will do a GoFundMe page, make a nice story about how much children and the likes have been left behind, why we should feel sorry for them. And knowing all proceeds will go to the family, it reaches 100k, 50k. They're going to be celebrating death. They're not going to be sad. Imagine someone ain't even seen that money in their life, and next thing you know, your husband died, but we just open a GoFundMe page for you, and mashallah, it's 100k. Where's the sadness of losing the husband going to be? It's a reality, isn't it? Because from the things that mankind have a love for is wealth, money. Someone presents 100k to you just on the spot, you haven't even done nothing. Unless that person has iman, they'll never accept this. But this is of the problems today. Me personally, what I would advise, those who have husn al-idara, they're good at managing things, rather than giving GoFundMe pages every time someone dies for the family, there should be a charity that supports widowed Muslim women within the UK, like a Zakat Foundation. And if they have a need, they apply for Zakat like everyone else. But it shouldn't be a thing, your husband dies, okay, GoFundMe page to support the family. La, that's not Islam. Or when someone dies, GoFundMe page, build a masjid in their name. That's not the sunnah. That is actually from innovation. You don't find any of the Salaf doing the likes of this. Or when the scholars die, when you hear a scholar saying we do a GoFundMe page, or we're going to build a masjid. But as soon as someone dies, oh, Sadaqah Jariyah. Sadaqah Jariyah is supposed to start it before you die. Sadaqah Jariyah, because look what it mentioned. إِذَا مَاتَ أَحْدُكُمْ إِنْ قَتَلَ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ إِحْدَى ثَلَاثٍ. When one of you die, all of the actions come to an end except for one of three. Now, so when we understand that one of three, of your actions that you have started, ilmun or sadaqatun jariyah, an ongoing charity, something you established before you died that people continue to benefit from. That's why it's called sadaqah jariyah, it's an ongoing charity. And then ilmun yuntafa'u bi, knowledge that other people benefit from. Knowledge that other people benefit from. And lastly, waladun salih yad'u lahu, a righteous child that makes dua for them. Wallahi, if I die, when I die, if any of you are here still, don't let anyone open a GoFundMe page for me. I'm being serious. That is my will that I'm mentioning here among everyone here. When that time comes and Allah takes me back and we ask Allah for husn khatimah, we shouldn't fear talking about death. We have to embrace this as what makes us correct our actions. When Allah returns my soul to Him, I don't want anyone that knew me to open a GoFundMe page. I don't want no one to say, let's do sadaqah jariyah on his behalf. That is my duty to do it while I'm alive now. If I don't do it, then I suffer the consequence of that regret Yawm al-Qiyamah, because I was neglecting it. But as for doing a GoFundMe page, I do not permit anyone to do a GoFundMe page on my behalf when I die. No.
So can I clarify? So what you're saying, is it an innovation to...
Yeah, it's an innovation.
But like, say for my father, if he's dead, if I was to do something like...
you can do it without, don't do a GoFundMe page for it. Don't gather money for it.
If it's done in private and stuff,
if it's done in private among the family, that's their choice. But the thing is, you should never make someone feel compelled as well. You can say, do you know what, I want to build a well for our father, who wants to get involved? No problem. But to make it a public thing you fundraise for, la.
Why should he build it for his father and not for himself? Because already he's
well, he can make a share for his father, there's no problem. But he can still do for himself, he can do for his father as well.
Benefits, isn't it?
You see? Not necessarily, that's his action.
Yeah.
You see? So, but he can still do something on behalf of his father. Like, for example, the best things is dua.
Yes.
If you know he had days that he didn't that he didn't do in Ramadan that he needs to make up, you make those up on his behalf. These are things that are legislated. Now, you could do sadaqah in his behalf privately. There's no problem in that.
But that doesn't become sadaqah jariyah, does it?
It does. It does, because that's from the fruits of having a righteous child. You see, so the fruits of a righteous child is that they do actions that will still benefit you after you die.
Sorry, Sheikh, quick one. So this is linked into sadaqah jariyah through the child.
Yes.
So
because the child does it with the intention of doing it for their father.
yeah. So
And that's from Allah's tawfiq, that Allah guided the son to be able to think that way.
no. So if it's from like a friend or
You can do it for your friend as well.
does that still count?
The point I'm making, let's make it clear. I'm not saying you can't do sadaqah jariyah on someone else's behalf. I'm talking about the practice of collecting money to do it.
Okay.
Making announcements that we're raising money, doing GoFundMe pages for it.
So you can do it privately.
You can do it privately, there's no problem in that. But if it's done privately, it's supposed to stay private. You see? And there's no compulsion. You don't say, okay, we all have to put in £50. No, a person puts in what they want to put in. No.
So, it's not off topic, but this is just in relation to somebody dying. Like if you're just generally doing a charity and you're say doing a GoFundMe for a charity, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm talking specifically when someone's died.
That's just
Because what's become a common practice, the second day after someone's died, you get a broadcast of a GoFundMe page. And there's no limit, there's no boundaries. Sometimes the money is going so high, what do you do with that money? I don't believe it should go to the family. You see? I believe it should go to a charity. And then widowed mothers when they are in need. For example, if I was to give the widowed wife any money, I would give her what she would have expected from her husband for 4 months and 10 days. Her iddah period, nothing more than that. That which will suffice them to buy what they need for the 4 months and the 10 days. If for example, if it reaches 50 grand, I'm not giving you 50 grand. You're not getting that, no. That's going into a charity. So anyone else, because look, how is it we're raising so much more money for one widowed family, but we can't raise that amount of money for those who are in need, orphanages and stuff, on an everyday basis? And then it goes back to popularity as well. Sometimes if you was a popular individual, the money that comes in is going to be even more. You see? But these practices have become widespread. But when we actually reflect, 10 years ago, I never heard of this before. That's just the reality. And Islam is not 10 years old, you see. 10 years ago, you didn't hear people doing this. You didn't even hear people saying, let's do a partner for them either. None of this at all, you see. Even another thing, when it comes to when people go Umrah, and during one Umrah trip, they do Umrah 5 times, 6 times for this person, that person. Again, that's not the way the Prophet ﷺ did Umrah. The Prophet Muhammad performed Umrah 4 times in 1 month. And for each time he performed Umrah was a separate journey. So it's not for you to go on one Umrah journey and you're making Umrah for 5 people. La. What's better, you make dua for them. Make dua for them. No? That is a better thing for you to do. And other things you can do, for example, let's say you have a deceased relative, they're not able to perform, they didn't perform Umrah or Hajj. You have students in Islamic universities that are in need of support while they're studying, and they offer services where they'll make Hajj and Umrah on their behalf for a small fee. And you can invest in that as a means of charity as well, you see. But as for doing one Umrah trip and then this person's going Umrah 7 times and the likes of that, so they make sure they might grow their hair for the year and get 1 level cut each time. La. The Sharia is clear. Wallahi, Islam is easy. We complicate it with ignorance. Islam is very easy, and that's why it mentions any of the things we have to show gratitude for is the ni'mah of knowledge. Because when a person has knowledge, Islam becomes very, very easy. The battle becomes won, just my desires. You see? Because when you don't know something, you feel lost, you feel vulnerable. When you have knowledge, you know how to navigate. That's why knowledge is the easiest and the quickest path to Jannah. That's why after Sadaqah Jariyah, what was mentioned? Knowledge that other people benefit from. And the thing is, you don't know. You may not be a student of knowledge. But you know, for example, there's someone who is a sheikh and he authors books. But he may need assistance in the printing of the book. But you may be good in finance, but you're not good in knowledge, but you know how to make money. So you're able to invest in the printing of the books, for example. So what happens? That's how you get your reward. You get reward of ongoing charity and knowledge that people benefit from. Because knowledge becomes widespread. You see, there are so much avenues for goodness, but only the people of knowledge are aware of them. Only the people of knowledge are aware of them. Islam is easy. Wallahi, Islam is easy. Because Allah does not want difficulty for us. Allah does not want hardship for us. Allah has made Islam easy. Now, and in general, the things that are hard are only hard in the beginning. In terms of that battle with your desires. The battle of desires, when a person becomes steadfast and has istiqamah, it becomes easier over time. Or if a person is new to Islam, what happens? You're, like, for example, you haven't been Muslim for maybe 20 years, 30 years of your life. Don't expect to become like the Muslim you're seeing that's been Muslim for the same amount of time you wasn't a Muslim. Don't expect to attain that in 30 minutes. That as soon as you took the Shahada, all of a sudden, you're going to have a wave, something's going to enter you and you're going to just come out different. That's not what happens. That's a fantasy. And sometimes this leads to people going mentally ill because they kind of forget themselves. They forget themselves. They no longer have their own personality. When you talk to them, it's like you're talking to a robot. Like emotionless. They may not even laugh anymore because they know too much laughing, it kills the heart. So just straight face all the time. They don't have understanding. Or they believe, I change my name immediately, I have to become a new person, new personality, everything's going to be different. No, take your time. The change comes with knowledge. And the change based upon knowledge is the change that remains. You see, because you know what you're doing. When you don't know what you're doing, just go with whatever comes to mind, I'm going to do it. You see. And also, the change comes with good company. Because for example, someone who wasn't Muslim, they may have a bad tongue and they're always swearing, for example. Then they come to the masjid, they realize, hold on, they might swear and they do this, astaghfirullah. They know that it's wrong. It's only a matter of time when you keep going through the stage of saying, astaghfirullah, and you just stop. Because you'll put yourself in a position where you are able to take control of yourself. You see? And that's what Allah mentioned when He says, we spoke about it before, لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم ولكن يؤاخذكم بما كسبت قلوبكم. Because those who are new to Islam, they kept saying Billati wal Uzza. They were still taking oaths by the idols that they worshipped before. But when they said it, they didn't have no intent behind it. It was a habit. You see? Like for example, some of the young people in Croydon, South London and the likes, a habit that was bad and indoctrinated upon youth is always saying swear on your mother's life. Swear on your mother's life. Now they just abbreviate, they say mothers. They don't even say the rest, they say mothers. And this is taken off by other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And imagine you don't know, you're lying and you don't know that one time Allah says, yeah, khalas, your mother's life is gone. That's it. You swore on your mother's life and you're lying, you go home, Allahul Musta'an. What do you do then? But no one taught us the gravity of that, innit? But imagine, as you're now become Muslim, you're young, you ain't left the lingo yet. It's very difficult. You know, it took me a long time to change my speaking. And sometimes I still catch myself. But it's like, imagine those habits though. Like slang is one thing. Sometimes you have to use it to relate. But the oaths of swearing by your mother's life and the likes and these things is problematic. You see? So a person might be around a Muslim, I swear on my mother's life. No, subhanAllah. Eventually they'll stop doing it. It's a process. But the only way you can have that process of a cleanse if you're in the right environment. For example, someone listens to music and they got the iTunes, the playlist, and you know every so often you might press a couple buttons. Imagine you're in the masjid now and the music starts going off. It's like hawk's eyes, everything's like that. Immediately, all eyes on you. What do you do then? Eventually you're gonna be like, hold on a minute. Don't know what that was, but can't come to the masjid with iTunes playlist of music. You're gonna start deleting that now because you don't want to take that risk again. And then eventually you'll be like, do you know what? Yeah, I really need to leave this off in totality. It's a process. How does that process happen? Good companionship and seeking knowledge. Because this is the key factor. When I want to know why I should leave off something, or what is the easiest way to leave off something, knowing the virtues of it. If I know the reward and I know the consequence, I'm more likely to leave it off. But if someone just says don't do it and doesn't give me a why, how am I going to function with that? What do I do with that? As someone who comes from a place of maybe a long period of time of ignorance. I have a certain behavior that I've had for this amount of time. How do you expect me to just change it because you just told me so? To the point where you'll find as a new Muslim, they're going to challenge you, because like, but where'd you get that from though? Or why? And if you can't tell them why, then it's problematic as well. But when you give someone reason, virtue, consequence, but these are all in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know something is prohibited. Why? Because Allah said so. The Prophet Muhammad said so. Okay, what's the consequence if I do it? I'm not going to do it now because I know the consequence. Okay, what's the virtue of doing certain things? When I know the reward, I want to do that because I actually want that reward. I know the goodness of that thing. That's how I incline someone. For example, everyone loves money, innit? No. It's only a few people that say, oh no, I don't care about money. But in reality, even if the person I don't care about money, someone says, hey, here's 10 bags. Hey, everything's gonna change. Skyscanner opened up first, booking holidays, good meals. But you didn't like money before that moment, right? But when it's presented to you, because money is from the beauties of the worldly life. But some people, they have it in abundance, but they are very stingy. How do I work with the stingy person now to make them spend in a way pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's why the Prophet taught us, sadaqah does not decrease your wealth. Who needs to hear that? The stingy one, because when he's going to give charity, the first thing he's counting, what remains. Now some people, when they ask to give charity, they start doing this. The smoke's a bit sticky. I don't know if I can do it right now. Why? Because they're making all the calculations. They haven't thought about the fact that Allah will give you more and better, a better exchange. It doesn't decrease from your wealth. The true wealth is your bank account with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not that which is in the LTD, the limited company. You see, this is what we have to teach the people, to be inclined towards goodness because of the reward, the benefit, knowing who they're doing it for. Also, as teaching the concept of gratitude. Teaching the concept of gratitude. Why is this important? Because the money you have in the first place, the good health you have in the first place, the security you have in having a shelter, a roof above your head, central heating, electricity, the list goes on. Your eyesight is good. You see, you don't have any physical ailments. The list goes on. All of these favors from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't pay for them. You see, Allah is the one who gives it to you. When we know there's some people right now, their home, they might have just lost their home half an hour ago. The situation in parts of the world right now. That's a reality. No electricity, no gas, no water, no food. There's not even means for assistance to come through. But we have all of those things. How do we show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do I show gratitude in obeying Allah, or do I take these things Allah has given me and I use them in ways to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I take all the favors Allah has given me, and instead of showing thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, using it in a way pleasing to Allah azza wa jal, what do? I do everything that is haram. This is when the favors that we are given from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they may be taken away from us. Because we're not showing gratitude. We're no longer deserving of those favors. And the most dangerous favor to play around with is ni'matul Islam, the favor of Islam. Allah chose from His ibad. You know, people always say reverts are better than born Muslims. This is not true. Where do we get this from? Majority of the Sahaba were what? Reverts. So where do we get this from of who's better based on the fact you just embrace Islam? La. Those who are better based on what Allah said makes you better. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The best of you in the sight of Allah are those who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most. You see? So the same applies. Whether you was born into Islam as in a Muslim household, or whether you embrace Islam at a later date, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one who placed Islam in your household. Allah is one who allowed you to embrace Islam. Because there are people who the whole house is Muslim except for this one left. Why? Allah ta'ala a'lam. Allah knows what's best within that person's heart. Or you have another family, everyone is not Muslim but one. And they all show enmity towards him, they all oppose him, and they all acknowledge the goodness of his character that he has since he became Muslim. They all know how evil and how wretched he was before he was Muslim, yet they still fail to acknowledge that a person is upon the goodness they are upon because of Islam. So the biggest favor that we're not to take for granted is that Allah has made us from those who are Muslim. Why? Because no one will enter Jannah. No one will get to see the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except for the Muslims. Except for the Muslims. So it's important that one does not become too attached to this worldly life. Because as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, al-dunya mal'unah. This worldly life is what? Cursed. ملعون ما فيها. What is in it is also cursed. إلا ذكر الله وما والاه وعالم ومتعلم. Except for remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that which Allah loves of statements and actions, and also a person of knowledge and a person who pursues knowledge. As long as we uphold these characteristics, always remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, always busy ourselves with that which is beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What else? Always stay close to the people of knowledge, always pursue knowledge, we will be upon abundant goodness. But as soon as we stray away from this, then we find ourselves in hardship. So we'll come to the end, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, with this point here. There's going to be no class tomorrow, inshallah. My classes are going to resume the 30th of October, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So for the next week and a half, there'll be no classes. 30th of October, the Monday class of Tafseer, Tuesday in Aqidah, Thursday in Surah, biography of the Prophet Muhammad sallam. Each class will be after Isha Salah. So they'll start about 7:30. But we'll pray Isha at 7:15, inshallah. Because the clock's going to go back at the end of the month. If you can just press it to silence it, inshallah. جيد ونكتفي بهذا القدر. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته. نعم تفضل حبيبي.